At 30,000 feet over the Atlantic, a pilot's heart stopped beating. In that moment, the only thing standing between 200 people and death was the courage of men trained for the impossible. Sergeant Michael Torres adjusted his headset one last time before takeoff. A U.S. Air Force pararescue specialist, he was aboard a military aircraft on a transport mission over the Atlantic. Beside him, other members of the aeromedical evacuation team checked their medical equipment, never imagining that in just a few hours they would be fighting against time in a situation that would challenge everything they had learned. On what seemed like a routine flight, destiny would test every second of training they possessed. And before I tell you what they faced that night, take a moment to subscribe to the channel and let us know which region you're watching from. Because now begins what would become the most defining mission of their lives. Major James Mitchell checked the instrument panel for the third time that hour. An experienced U.S. Air Force pilot with over 15 years of service, he commanded the military aircraft cutting through the sky over the Atlantic Ocean toward the European base. It was a routine transport mission, but Mitchell never underestimated the responsibility of having lives in his hands. In the cockpit, the blue light from the instruments created a calm and controlled environment. The co-pilot, Captain Sarah Chen, monitored communications with air traffic control while constantly updating the flight route. The aircraft flew stable at 30,000 feet, with autopilot engaged and all systems functioning perfectly. Behind them, in the passenger area, Sergeant Michael Torres and his pararescue team conducted final checks of their medical equipment. Torres was a veteran of rescue missions, known for his calm under pressure and exceptional technical skill. His team included flight medicine specialist Marcus Johnson and Staff Sergeant Lisa Rodriguez, a nurse specialized in aerial intensive care. "All good back here, Major," Torres communicated through the intercom. "Medical equipment checked and ready for any eventuality." Mitchell smiled, appreciating the team's dedication. "Perfect, Sergeant. Smooth flight ahead. Estimated arrival in 4 hours." The ocean stretched infinitely below them, a dark mass dotted only by moonlight. The engines maintained their constant and reassuring hum while the aircraft followed its predetermined route through the transatlantic air corridor. It was exactly the type of flight Mitchell preferred. No turbulence, good visibility, systems functioning perfectly. Chen updated position to oceanic control and received route confirmation. "Control confirms our position and maintains authorization for FL 300, she informed the pilot. "Roger," Mitchell responded, slightly adjusting the aircraft's trim. At that moment, everything seemed absolutely normal. The numbers on the panel showed ideal parameters. Communication flowed smoothly, and the crew executed their procedures with the precision of a well-oiled machine. It was just another flight over the Atlantic, one of hundreds Mitchell had commanded throughout his career. But sometimes destiny has other plans. It was 23:47 when everything changed. Mitchell was reviewing flight documentation when he felt a sudden and intense pain in his chest, as if someone had driven a knife into his heart. The sensation radiated to his left arm and jaw, making him involuntarily drop the papers. "Mitchell?" Chen immediately noticed the change in the pilot's expression. "Are you okay?" The major tried to respond, but words wouldn't come. The pain intensified brutally, like a vice squeezing his chest with growing force. His hands trembled on the controls, and cold sweat covered his forehead. Within seconds, his vision began to blur. "James!" Chen shouted upon seeing the pilot writhe in his chair. "What's happening?" Mitchell desperately tried to maintain control of the situation, but his body no longer obeyed his mind's commands. The chest pain became unbearable, now radiating to both arms. He knew exactly what was happening. All symptoms pointed to acute myocardial infarction. "Chen," he managed to whisper with difficulty, "take the controls." But before he could complete the sentence, Major James Mitchell collapsed onto the aircraft's controls. His body became completely inert, his face lost color, and his breathing became irregular and shallow. "Mitchell!" Chen screamed, immediately disengaging autopilot and taking control of the aircraft. With her left hand on the yoke, she used her right to try to revive the pilot, but he didn't respond to any stimulus. The instrument panel began flashing with alerts. The aircraft had lost stability when Mitchell collapsed onto the controls, initiating an unauthorized descent. Chen fought to maintain altitude and stabilize the flight, but piloting such an aircraft alone over the open ocean was an extreme challenge. "Medical emergency in the cockpit," she communicated through the intercom to the passenger cabin. "Repeat, medical emergency in the cockpit. Pararescue, come immediately." Through the oxygen mask, her voice carried the weight of absolute urgency. The situation had transformed from a routine mission to a nightmare scenario in seconds. At 30,000 feet over the ocean, with no possibility of immediate landing, every second could be the difference between life and death. The intercom echoed through the passenger cabin like a war alarm. Torres and his team jumped from their seats instantly, their years of training activating automatic reflexes. Within seconds, they were running down the aircraft's central aisle, carrying their emergency medical equipment. "Johnson, grab the defibrillator and CPR kit," Torres shouted while running. "Rodriguez, bring the portable oxygen and cardiac medications." The aircraft swayed violently when Torres reached the cockpit door. Through the glass, he could see Chen struggling to maintain control, while Mitchell remained unconscious over the controls. The instrument panel flashed red and yellow, signaling multiple system alerts. "Captain Chen!" Torres entered the cockpit. "What's the situation?" "The Major collapsed 3 minutes ago," Chen responded without taking her eyes off the instruments. "Symptoms of heart attack, lost consciousness, and doesn't respond to stimuli." Torres immediately began assessing Mitchell. He placed 2 fingers on the pilot's neck, searching for the carotid pulse. For several agonizing seconds, he couldn't detect any heartbeat. Finally, he found a weak and irregular pulse. "Pulse present, but very weak," Torres communicated to his team. "Johnson, prepare the cardiac monitor. Rodriguez, establish venous access." Specialist Johnson quickly connected the monitor electrodes to Mitchell's chest. The screen showed an extremely irregular heart rhythm, atrial fibrillation with episodes of ventricular tachycardia. It was a critical condition that could evolve to cardiorespiratory arrest at any moment. "Unstable rhythm with imminent risk of arrest," Johnson reported. "Frequency varying between 45 and 180 BPM. Rodriguez established venous access with surgical precision, even with the aircraft swaying. "Access obtained. Preparing emergency medication." The situation in the cockpit was chaotic, but controlled. Chen maintained the aircraft stable with superhuman effort, while the medical team worked on Mitchell. The cramped space of the command cabin made every movement a challenge, but they knew there was no alternative. "Torres, I need help here," Chen shouted. "I can't maintain altitude and navigate alone." "Rodriguez, take over the Major's care," Torres ordered. "I'll help with the controls." Torres positioned himself behind Chen, placing his hands on the secondary controls. Even without being a pilot, his military training allowed him to understand basic flight instruments and help stabilize the aircraft. "Mayday, mayday, mayday," Chen transmitted on the emergency radio. "This is Military Flight 847, medical emergency on board, pilot in command in cardiac arrest. We request medical assistance and authorization for immediate diversion." The response came through oceanic control. "Flight 847, this is Atlantic Control. We confirm your emergency. What's your current position and aircraft command capability?" "Position approximately 800 miles east of Newfoundland. Co-pilot in command, but need assistance. We have pararescue team on board providing medical care." Torres kept one hand on the controls while watching Rodriguez work on Mitchell. The nurse had administered medications to stabilize the heart rhythm, but the situation remained critical. "Sergeant Torres," Rodriguez called urgently. "The Major is going into cardiorespiratory arrest." The monitor showed an almost flat line. Mitchell had completely lost his pulse. Torres immediately left the controls and positioned himself to begin chest compressions. "Johnson, prepare the defibrillator." Torres began compressions in the tight cockpit space. Rodriguez, maintain ventilation. Chen struggled alone with the controls again, but knew there was no choice. Mitchell's life depended entirely on the medical team at that moment. 30 compressions, 2 ventilations. Torres counted aloud, maintaining the precise rhythm of compressions. "Johnson, check the rhythm." "Ventricular fibrillation," Johnson announced. "Preparing shock." "Everyone clear," Torres ordered. Johnson applied the electrical shock to Mitchell's chest. The pilot's body contracted violently, but the monitor continued showing fibrillation. "No response. Restarting compressions." Torres immediately resumed the procedure. Sweat ran down his face under the oxygen mask, but his determination was unwavering. Traffic control came back on the radio. "Flight 847, we're coordinating with Coast Guard and military bases in the region. Maintain medical procedures. Nearest airport for emergency landing is 400 miles away." 400 miles is at least 45 minutes, Chen responded. "I don't know if we have that time." Torres continued compressions, determined not to give up. In his hands was not only the life of a military colleague, but also the safety of everyone on board. It was exactly for moments like this that he had dedicated years of his life to pararescue training. "Second dose of epinephrine," Torres ordered while continuing chest compressions. "Rodriguez, maintain assisted ventilation." 5 minutes had passed since the onset of cardiac arrest. Statistically, chances of recovery decreased dramatically with each minute, but Torres knew that giving up was never an option in the pararescue vocabulary. His compressions maintained a constant and precise rhythm, artificially pumping blood through Mitchell's body. "Johnson, analyze the rhythm again," Torres commanded after completing another compression cycle. "Still ventricular fibrillation, but the amplitude is improving," Johnson reported with a thread of hope in his voice. "The heart is responding to medications." Chen fought to keep the aircraft stable while listening to every word exchanged by the medical team. The responsibility of piloting a military aircraft alone over the ocean was overwhelming, but she knew any error on her part could be fatal for everyone. "Torres!" Chen called. "I need to know, can you stabilize him? Because if you can't, I'll have to make drastic decisions about the flight." "Don't give up on him yet, Captain," Torres responded without stopping compressions. "We have protocols for this. Rodriguez, prepare amiodarone 300 milligrams. The nurse quickly prepared the antiarrhythmic medication. "Amiodarone ready!" "Administer now," Torres ordered. "Johnson, prepare for new shock if necessary." The medication was injected into Mitchell's venous access. Torres watched the cardiac monitor like a hawk, looking for any sign of improvement in rhythm. For a few seconds that seemed eternal, the fibrillation continued. Then, miraculously, the rhythm began to organize. "Torres, look at this!" Johnson pointed to the monitor. "We have sinus rhythm." Mitchell's heart had resumed a more organized beat. It wasn't perfect, but it was life. Torres immediately checked the carotid pulse and felt a weak but constant beat. "Pulse present," Torres announced with controlled relief. "Rate 85, stable rhythm." Mitchell began showing weak, spontaneous breathing. His eyes remained closed, but some reflexes began to return. Rodriguez maintained assisted ventilation while monitoring vital signs. Blood pressure 90/60. Oxygen saturation 92%, Rodriguez reported. "He's stable but still critical." Chen heard the good news over the intercom. Atlantic Control, this is Flight 847. Patient was successfully resuscitated, but remains in critical condition. We maintain request for emergency landing. With Mitchell stabilized but still unconscious, Torres organized his team for continuous intensive care. The cramped cockpit space transformed into an improvised intensive care unit, with each team member performing vital functions. Rodriguez, establish continuous monitoring, Torres instructed. Johnson, prepare dopamine infusion to maintain blood pressure. Let's keep him stable until we reach the ground. The nurse connected multiple monitors to Mitchell's body. Pulse oximeter, cardiac monitor, automatic blood pressure cuff. All equipment worked in sync to maintain constant vigilance over the pilot's vital signs. Dopamine prepared in infusion pump, Johnson reported, starting at 5 micrograms per kilogram per minute. Torres carefully observed Mitchell's response to the medication. Slowly, blood pressure began rising to safer levels while heart rhythm remained stable. Chen, how's our flight situation? Torres asked. Maintaining altitude and course to emergency airport. Estimated time 35 minutes. Sufficient fuel, but I need to know if he'll make it. Torres carefully assessed the patient's condition. Mitchell showed signs of gradual improvement. His coloration was less pale, breathing became more regular, and occasionally he moved his eyelids slightly. He's responding well to treatment, Torres communicated. Vital signs stabilizing, but we need immediate hospital care upon landing. Johnson constantly monitored the electrocardiogram. Rhythm remains stable, some occasional premature beats, but nothing worrying for now. Rodriguez checked Mitchell's body temperature. Temperature slightly low, but within acceptable parameters. I'll cover him better to maintain body heat. The coordination between the three professionals was perfect. Each knew exactly their function, and they worked like a well-oiled machine. Torres alternated between supervising medical care and helping Chen with information about the patient's condition. Control, this is Flight 847, Chen transmitted. Patient stable at the moment. Confirm availability of emergency medical team at destination airport. Flight 847, emergency medical team is already mobilized. ICU ambulance and cardiologist will be waiting on the tarmac. We authorize descent to FL 250 when requested. Torres felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. Mitchell was stable, but still not out of danger. The next 30 minutes would be crucial to determine if they could deliver the pilot alive to hospital care. It was time to discover if time was on their side. And if you're feeling the weight of this story so far, subscribe to the channel, give it a like, and tell us what you would have done in their place, because what comes next is even more intense. With 20 minutes remaining until emergency landing, nature decided to test the team's resistance even further. An unforeseen storm front intercepted the aircraft's route, bringing severe turbulence that transformed the already challenging medical work into a battle against the forces of nature. "Hold on!" Chen warned when the first wind gust hit the aircraft. "Entering turbulence area." The aircraft began swaying violently. Torres held Mitchell firmly on the improvised stretcher, while Rodriguez and Johnson fought to keep medical equipment stable. The cardiac monitor oscillated dangerously, threatening to fall and break. "Johnson, secure that monitor!" Torres shouted over the noise of engines and turbulence. "Rodriguez, maintain the medication line!" Mitchell began showing signs of instability again. The stress of turbulence, combined with his critical cardiac condition, was affecting his vital signs. The monitor showed increasing arrhythmias. "Torres, blood pressure dropping," Rodriguez alerted. 80 over 50 and falling. "Increase the dopamine," Torres ordered while fighting against the aircraft's movements. "Johnson, prepare backup norepinephrine." The aircraft suddenly dropped about 500 feet due to a downdraft. Everyone was thrown against the cockpit ceiling, but Torres maintained his position, protecting Mitchell. Medical equipment flew around the compartment. "Chen, I need more stable flight," Torres shouted. "I'm doing what I can," Chen responded, struggling with the controls. "The storm is stronger than predicted." The defibrillator slipped and almost fell, but Johnson managed to catch it at the last second. The situation was deteriorating rapidly. Beyond medical problems, they now faced extreme flight conditions. Mitchell began convulsing slightly. The combination of physical stress from turbulence with his post-cardiac arrest neurological condition was creating additional complications. "He's convulsing," Rodriguez alerted. "Torres, I need to administer diazepam. Do it quickly." Torres held Mitchell's head to prevent trauma during convulsions. "Johnson, monitor oxygen." Rodriguez prepared the anticonvulsant medication, even with the aircraft swaying violently. Her experience as a flight nurse proved invaluable. She managed to administer the medication with surgical precision, even under adverse conditions. "Diazepam administered," she reported, "convulsions ceasing." Slowly, Mitchell stopped convulsing. His vital signs began stabilizing again, but Torres knew each episode like this decreased chances of complete recovery. 15 minutes to landing," Chen announced. "I'll try to circumvent the worst of the storm." Torres looked at Mitchell and made a decision. They had come too far to give up now. "Ground control, this is Flight 847 on emergency approach," Chen transmitted when they finally exited the turbulence area. "Critical patient on board. We need absolute priority for landing." "Flight 847, you have maximum priority. Runway 09 cleared and isolated. Medical team positioned. Report patient conditions." Torres took over medical communication. "Control, this is Sergeant Torres, Pararescue. Male patient, 45 years old, acute myocardial infarction with cardiorespiratory arrest, reversed. Currently stable but critical. Will need immediate transfer to cardiac ICU. Copy, Sergeant. Dr. Martinez, cardiologist, is waiting with complete mobile ICU team. Ambulance equipped with intra-aortic balloon on standby." Johnson monitored Mitchell's final vital parameters during descent. Signs stable. Pressure 95/65, heart rate 78, saturation 96%. He's responding well. Rodriguez prepared Mitchell for ground transport. She organized medications, checked IV lines, and ensured all monitors were functioning perfectly for transfer. "Torres, he's beginning to regain consciousness." Rodriguez observed better pupillary response from Mitchell. "Reflexes improving." It was the sign Torres was waiting for. Mitchell began showing small voluntary movements, and his eyelids trembled slightly. He still wasn't completely conscious, but neurological signs were encouraging. "Major Mitchell," Torres spoke close to the pilot's ear, "if you can hear me, try to move your fingers." Miraculously, Mitchell slightly moved his right index finger. It was an almost imperceptible movement, but it meant his higher neurological functions were preserved. "Ground control, patient showing signs of neurological recovery," Torres communicated with evident satisfaction. "Prognosis improving." Chen initiated final approach for landing. 3 minutes to touchdown. Torres, prepare patient for immediate disembark. "Team, prepare for quick transition," Torres ordered. "Rodriguez, maintain medications. Johnson, carry monitors. We're going to deliver Major Mitchell alive to hospital care." The airport runway appeared through the darkness, illuminated by emergency lights. Ambulances, fire trucks, and medical teams waited positioned. It was an impressive display of coordination and professionalism. "Final for landing. Flight 847, Chen announced. "Mission almost accomplished." Torres held Mitchell's hand as the aircraft approached the ground. Against all odds, they had managed to keep a man alive during cardiac arrest at 30,000 feet over the ocean. The aircraft's touchdown on the runway was smooth as a feather. Chen demonstrated all her expertise as a pilot, executing a perfect landing even after piloting alone under extreme conditions. Before the aircraft even stopped completely, ground emergency teams were already positioned. "Engines cut, all systems secure," Chen announced. "Torres, disembark the patient." The aircraft door opened and Dr. Martinez boarded with his team. An experienced cardiologist, he immediately took over medical care while Torres briefed the situation. Dr. Major Mitchell, 45 years old, heart attack with arrest for approximately 7 minutes, successfully reversed. Current medication, dopamine on pump, amiodarone, oxygen supplementation. Martinez quickly examined Mitchell while his team prepared the stretcher for transport. "Excellent work, Sergeant. Vital signs stable. Good neurological response. You saved his life." The transfer was executed with military precision. In less than 3 minutes, Mitchell was in the ICU ambulance with all monitors functioning and medications transferred. Rodriguez accompanied the transport to ensure continuity of care. "Torres!" Mitchell whispered weakly when placed on the ambulance stretcher, his first words since the collapse. "I'm here, Major," Torres approached. "You're safe. We're going to take care of you." "The aircraft?" Mitchell tried to speak, concerned about his responsibility as pilot. "Landed safely, Major. Captain Chen did perfect work. Everyone is fine. Now you need to focus on recovering." Mitchell nodded weakly and closed his eyes, finally allowing his body to rest. The ambulance departed for the hospital with sirens on, taking him to emergency cardiac surgery. Chen descended from the aircraft, visibly exhausted but relieved. Torres and Johnson congratulated her at the foot of the stairs. "Captain, you were incredible," Torres said. "I don't know many pilots who could do what you did." "We did it, Sergeant. The whole team. Mitchell is alive because each of us did our part." The base commander approached the group. "Folks, I want you to know that what you did today will go down in U.S. Air Force history. Saving a life in cardiac arrest at 30,000 feet over the ocean. That's literally impossible, but you made the impossible reality." Torres looked at the still dark sky over the Atlantic. Somewhere up there, they had defied the laws of medicine, physics, and probability. They had proven that when courage, training, and determination unite, there are no limits to what the human spirit can achieve. 3 weeks later, Major James Mitchell walked through the airbase corridors with a smile on his face and a new perspective on life. The cardiac surgery had been successful, and although he was still recovering, doctors confirmed he would make a complete recovery. In the main hangar, a special ceremony was being prepared. The U.S. Air Force commander had come personally to recognize the heroes of that night over the Atlantic. Sergeant Michael Torres, Specialist Marcus Johnson, Sergeant Lisa Rodriguez, and Captain Sarah Chen, please present yourselves forward. The four positioned themselves in formation, impeccably uniformed. In front of them, dozens of military personnel and family members applauded standing. Mitchell was in the front row, watching with pride and infinite gratitude. "On a night over the Atlantic Ocean, you proved that courage knows no limits," declared the commander. "Against impossible odds, at 30,000 feet altitude, you saved a life and brought a military aircraft safely to ground. For the exceptional heroism demonstrated, it is with great honor that I award you the U.S. Air Force Medal of Valor." Medals were presented one by one. When it was Torres' turn, the commander made a special pause. "Sergeant Torres, your command during the medical emergency, your refusal to give up even under the most adverse conditions exemplifies the best of the pararescue spirit. That others may live is not just a motto for you, it's a way of life." Torres received his medal with characteristic humility. For him, that night had simply been the fulfillment of his oath as pararescue. There was no personal glory in saving lives. It was his vocation, his mission, his reason for existence. Chen was recognized for her exceptional piloting under extreme pressure. Captain Chen, Your ability to maintain aircraft control while your crew saved a life demonstrates the highest level of aviator professionalism. Johnson and Rodriguez were equally honored for their medical expertise and impeccable teamwork. Each team member had played a crucial role in Mitchell's salvation. After the ceremony, Mitchell approached Torres privately. "Sergeant, I owe my life to you and your team. There are no words to express my gratitude." "Major, you would do the same for any of us," Torres replied. "That's what we serve for, to protect each other." "Is there anything I can do to repay you?" Torres smiled. "Keep flying, Major. Keep serving. Keep being the exceptional pilot you've always been. Your saved life means you can save other lives in the future." Mitchell nodded, deeply understanding the meaning of those words. He had received a second chance and intended to make the best use of it. Months later, Mitchell returned to active service as a pilot. Every time he took to the skies, he carried with him the memory of that night over the Atlantic. Not as trauma, but as a reminder that there are people willing to risk everything to save others' lives. Torres continued his pararescue missions around the world. For him, that night was just another confirmation that he had chosen the right profession. Each life saved validated years of intense training and absolute dedication. The story of that night spread through the U.S. Air Force as living legend. Young pararescue recruits heard the account as inspiration for their own training. It was proof that when preparation meets opportunity, miracles can happen. Years later, when Torres was promoted to Master Sergeant, he kept on his office wall a photo of the team from that memorable night. Not as a personal trophy, but as a constant reminder that courage is not the absence of fear. It's doing what's right, despite fear. Mitchell and Torres maintained contact over the years. They developed a friendship based on mutual respect and a shared experience that few humans would ever live through. They knew that on that night over the Atlantic, they had touched something greater than themselves, the U.S. Air Force officially filed the incident as successful aerial medical rescue under extreme conditions. But for those who lived those moments, it was much more than that. It was proof that courage, training, and determination can overcome any obstacle. And when young military personnel asked Torres what was the secret to saving lives in impossible situations, he always answered simply, "Never give up. As long as there's a heartbeat, a breath of life, a minimal chance of success, you keep fighting, because that life could be the difference between a complete family and a destroyed family." That night over the Atlantic proved that real heroes don't wear capes. They wear uniforms, carry medical equipment, and have an unwavering conviction that every life is worth saving. And that conviction, that courage, that dedication, that remains forever as an example of the best humanity can offer. If this story touched you, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, leave a like, and comment below what impacted you the most. The next mission might be closer than you think.